I want everybody's attention who is either considering some type of higher education yourself, or you are a parent or a grandparent and you've got some influence for a young person. And I'm going to give you a history lesson to back up what I'm going to say. And this is going to shock some of you, and I'm okay with it. But I ask that you give me 5 minutes of attention. And if this first statement freaks you out, wait 5 minutes, and then you'll see how it's relevant to what we discuss every day. Here's the lie about higher education, and it has been marketed to us for quite some time. History lesson coming shortly. Here's the lie. The college degree ain't what it used to be. Emphasis on ain't. The college degree ain't what it used to be. Why? Because our economy has shifted dramatically, and as a result, corporations have shifted dramatically. They're taking people and training them on the job. Most, hear me, most college degrees are not relevant to actual jobs in the workforce. Now, that is not the case for every job or career. There are instances where the degree is the best way or the only way for now. But we have a scourge of college seniors who graduate with a degree and a bunch of debt, and they can't even get hired. Why? Because college education has become an institution that has been marketed to us for half a century, that it is the way to success. Let me show you where it started. Can I get the picture, gentlemen? Put this up on the screen. My good friend Mike Rowe and I, the guy you know from Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe and I have become friends. I've had the opportunity to interview him for a few times. Let's leave this up on the screen. So that's Mike in the picture. Now, this is an actual poster that he went and found because the first time he saw that poster was in 1977. And he's in the office of his high school guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor is giving him advice, and he references the poster behind him. And Mike, of course, has been staring at the poster for the entire length of the conversation. And you can see there that it says, "Work smart," underneath the college grad, beaming with his crisp diploma. "Not hard," referring to the depressed and dirty trade worker. Now, let's just pause for a second. Was that poster intended to spur thought? And was it intended to be a positive influence? I absolutely believe that's true. But what's the unintended effect of that poster? Please put it back up on the screen. Here's the unintended effect. Anybody with any sense of logic looks at that poster and goes, oh, if I want to be successful and have a good life, maybe a great life, I got to go to college. If I want to settle for a depressing life, a below average life, where I'm dirty and nasty and stinky all day long, ooh, I better really seriously figure out how to go to college and then what to do with that degree. And this was the message that was sent. It became a marketing message. So when I say that the college degree ain't what it used to be, it's not as relevant as it used to be. Is it still relevant? Yes, in many fields. But you need to understand, folks, that there has been a marketing message that has been shoved down our throats that the only way to be successful is to go to college. Now, that has created a booming industry. But let me give you the history so you to go, Ken, that's your opinion. No, it's not my opinion. Here's a quick history lesson. 1972. The education amendments that get passed lead to the Pell Grant, which was a government grant for students to go to college. Prior to 1970, the federal government was basically not involved in funding higher education. Let's fast forward to 1978. In 1978, the federal government, as they like to do, all bureaucrats and politicians are always trying to figure out how to make more money. And so they figured out this Pell Grant is very popular, and it was. And they said, well, instead of the grant, what if we offer more money and we call it a student loan and we back it with the federal government and we make it a low interest rate? And that was a very popular idea because now the message had taken hold. Colleges were springing up and spreading throughout states. So this is 1978. So from 1960 to about 1985 is a period of history called the Cold War, an arms race with Russia. We don't need to get into that, but the federal government also realized that these institutions of academia could be great research institutions to help us compete with other foreign countries. And so they drove even more federal dollars to help with research. And then governors and states started going, wait a second, we're getting a lot of jobs in here, which is more tax dollars, more money. And so what happened? Governors started realizing this is about economic development and political achievement. Uh-oh. Is anybody catching up to me right now? Joe, you following along? We got ourselves a real political marketing campaign going on. It's not about training kids. It's about economic development and making me look like a great governor so that I can become a senator and maybe higher and higher and higher. Now there's an ulterior motive with a really powerful message. Parents, do you want your kids to be losers and work in the trades? A blue-collar job? A non-college educated job? Is that what you want for your kids? And kids are inevitably getting the message. Do I want a less than life? And we created a working class warfare. The haves and the have-nots, all from a marketing message. And so many of you young people watching right now, and many of you parents who have kids in school and they're working their way up and you've already got this cultural pressure. Where's Johnny going to go to school? Where's Susie going to go to school? Will they get the grades necessary and the SAT or the ACT and how are we going to afford it? And it's all this pressure and stress that has nothing to do with the real issue. And the real issue is college education. Is it the best way or the only way for your child or for you to get where you want to go? Now, education is always going to be a play, but it doesn't mean higher education. It could be a certification, a training course, an online webinar. Yes, you'll always need to learn something to get qualified, but don't assume it has to be college education. You have been sold a lie, and I'm very serious about this. The lie is that for you to be successful or for everybody to have a successful, desirable life, it involves college education. That's a lie, and there's nothing to support that. The fact of the matter is, a lot of white-collar people lost their job. They had the fancy degrees that they couldn't afford, and they're in student loan debt, and they got laid off during COVID. And yet, the men and women that didn't go get the fancy degree, if they got a degree at all, are running trade businesses, and they're keeping people employed, and they're multimillionaires because they've been working for themselves. And yeah, they get a little dirty and a little stinky, but they actually like the problem they're solving and the people they're helping. Wake up. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of having to hear parents feel the pressure to push a kid into college when they know the kid is not the brightest student in the world. See, understand this. Here's what happened. When I gave you that history lesson, realize what happened. When this became about economic development and political achievement, the state bureaucrats in every state and the federal bureaucrats pushed a message down to schools. And schools went from being teachers to counselors to get kids prepared for this next rite of passage that all of a sudden was shinier than anything we'd ever seen before and guaranteed results. So what happened? The teacher started taking the brightest students and saying, hey, you're very bright. You do really well in this cattle call of a classroom environment. One size fits all. Now I'm stepping on toes. And because you're so bright, we're going to push you to the greatest institutions. But for you kids, you're not as bright as the rest of them. We're going to put you in a separate class. We're going to put you over here because we don't know how to instruct you. And quite frankly, you're too much effort for us to instruct you. We've got these bright students and we've got to put them in the machine because this is what's been sold to us. And this is what's happened. So you need to wake up, parents. Young people, if you're feeling this pressure, please keep listening to this show. Let's figure out what you were created to do. And it may or may not involve college education. If it does require it, I'm all for it. Hear me say, for those of you that I've somehow offended because we live in the most offended time in our lives, I'm sorry you feel offended. Go back and watch it again. And what I said is that college is not the only way for everybody. It is the only way for some. It is the best way for some. But for most, it's becoming increasingly irrelevant. Go look at the data. Google it. Google college graduates and being overqualified in the sense that they paid all this money for a degree and they can't get a job that will allow them to afford the student loan payment. Wake up. The marketing message has worked. And I'm here to say that you were created to fill a unique role through your work. And I don't care, and you shouldn't care if it requires a degree or not. What are we doing? We're wasting time and money, a lot of us, pursuing something that is about cultural esteem. That's it. So, that makes you uncomfortable? Great. Because if I can nudge you parents out of making a bad decision that your kid doesn't want to do and cannot afford, great. If those of you adults out there that are going, Ken, I want to transition to this career because I know it's what I was created to do and I feel like I got to go get a master's degree. Do you? Do you need it? Is it the only way? Is it the best way? If it's not, call me. There is another way. And it's so much more enjoyable and so much more affordable.